Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive Podcast. In this episode, we are going to take a look at the week ahead for the week of January 13th, 2025. We're also going to take a look at some of the energies that are coming up around this full moon that we'll certainly be working with this week, and how the energies are kind of working together and what to sort of be prepared for. So a lot to ponder this week, with some really intense energy showing up, not in a bad way, just in a contemplative, a going deeper type of energy that has the potential to open us up more, to push us to be a little bit more vulnerable, to push us to figure out within our own lives what has value, what's important, what's worth fighting for, what's worth salvaging, and what does that process look like. And the goal of all of the energies circulating this week is to bring us back to a greater sense of community, where we not only feel supported, but we also support others, whether we see eye to eye with them or not, whether it serves us or not. There's a lot circulating this week. And again, remember, the energy can be present. It's what we choose to do with it that makes the difference, where we'll see the greatest results. But the push this week with the energies that we're working with are really trying to remind us of the importance of coming together, of unity, of community, of helping someone who needs it, of picking someone up when they fall, even if they're on the other side of the fence politically, even if they have different values, have different beliefs, approach life differently, right? Express themselves differently. There's a big push this week for getting back to the core value system of society, of humanity, right? Which is that need for greater community, for coming together, and for conversations. So let's talk about it. So we have this full moon that's happening on January 13th or 14th, depending on where you live in the world. This full moon is going to be highlighting the energies of both the 5 and the 6. And so the 5, when it shows up in a cycle, usually will come in and shake things up. It will usually spice things up a bit, right? It brings the transformation. It brings the much needed change. It brings the awakening and the aha moment that is needed to shake us out of our slumber, to wake us up to something that we have been missing, to help us to see the point, right? That maybe we've been overlooking or that's been overshadowed. The 5 comes in and makes it very clear. So a lot of clarity can come in around this full moon. Where there was fog, it's crystal clear in what actions we need to take, in what modifications need to be made, what needs to be released, what needs to be continued to be worked with, etc. The 6 brings in the vibration of love, truth, honesty. Also the home, right? Family, where we feel the most supported, or where we should feel the most supported, right? And usually it's our home environment. So the home that we build, whether that's with our personal, physical body, whether that's in the home that is our castle, and the people that we share that with. And so it can bring the focus towards intimate relationships, friendships, family, close-knit community, anywhere that we are working to build a support system, right? Where we're working to have that safety net, that sense of security, that sense of, feeling loved and being able to be vulnerable and all those things. So it's that environment that this full moon is sort of putting the spotlight on. Change and modification that's needed, or a sense of freedom, right? The 5 also brings in a sense of freedom, or pushes us towards, again, progressiveness, thinking ahead of the time, trying new things, being unconventional, trying something different to get better results. Evolution, right? Not being so rigid and thinking outside the box, trying things outside of our comfort zone. So the 5 is going to bring that energy associated with all things related to the 6, right? So home, family, finances as they affect the home, close-knit community, etc. So likely what we will see is in those areas, the need for greater truth, honesty, and unconditional love. Because the 6 is a love vibration. It is the vibration of truth and honesty and love, unconditional love. And so we might be sort of faced with how we feel about love, how we show up to love, how we receive love. Could we possibly use some adjustments under this full moon to help us to get more aligned with the frequency of truth, honesty, and love? And that's, I think, going to be a really big theme this week. And it's not about the fluff, right? It's not about, spiritual bypassing or like love and light. It's about truly doing the work to get to that vibration. And of course, that's not going to be accomplished in a week. I mean, it might be, but the 5 brings the needed change, brings in the needed clarity, the need for adjustments, for thinking differently, again, for trying something different, something new, for breaking old belief patterns or old habits in order to step into a higher vibration, this higher vibration of love, truth, and honesty. When it comes to especially our closer connections, right? Really with anyone, but the core theme is around those relationships that are closest to our hearts. Because usually that's where we find a lot of the need for greater conversation, the need for greater transparency and vulnerability are with those connections, right? A lot of times, there's that saying that we hurt the people we love the most. And it's because we feel safest with them, right? We feel like they'll easily forgive us over someone who doesn't know us, right? And so it's interesting because when the 5 and the 6 come together, it shows us where it is that, especially within those connections, because those are the connections that are seeing the truth of who we are, really, right? Whether that's the shadow side or the light side. And we all have both. And it's usually those deeper connections that get to see all sides of us as we work through whatever we need to work through. And so the 5 and the 6 coming together shows us where we can do better in those connections. And by doing better within those connections, we'll start to do better in all of our connections. So it can bring up things, areas where we don't feel worthy of love, or we're afraid to love again, or we're afraid to put ourselves out there, where we're afraid to be vulnerable. And it can easily confront us with that and sort of force us to move through that. And sometimes, this can bring in that aha moment or that greater understanding that, maybe I need therapy. Maybe I need to connect with someone who is unbiased to the situation and can really help me to move through this, get the tools that I need to be able to overcome whatever this is I'm moving through, and to move forward. So this can be a really beautiful period for, again, seeking out assistance and help and support where you need it most. But it's not, like I said, it's not that real fluffy spiritual bypassing type of energy. It's an energy that pushes us to our depths to see where is it that we're missing the mark, that we're not, living the best version of who we could be through our actions, through our belief systems, through our values, how we're showing up to connections, etc. Where is it that we actually work towards greater separation than unity in our relationships, in our connectivity? So there's a lot here. There's a lot here that could be sort of unveiled, but whatever shows up, and a lot of times where there's this energy, especially the 5, it can bring that chaos. It can bring that catalytic type of energy that can help us to see where it is that we have a problem, where it is that we're not, showing up in our greatest light, so that we can make adjustments, so that we can make the changes that we need to make. But it can be really, really uncomfortable in the process. Like, change is never easy. And well, very rarely is it easy, because usually with change, you've got to release something so that you can, step into this next chapter, whatever that may be. But there's always a release. There's always something that needs to fall away or will look different, right? It's not going to be the same. And humans usually hate change. So when the 5 comes in a cycle, it almost guarantees some kind of change that will push us towards that higher octave of the 6, that truth, love, and honesty. But it's going to require us to do the work, to show up and make the effort. And that can be really uncomfortable, especially if we're not ready for the change, especially if we're not ready to commit to whatever it is that we need to do in order to, enact that change. So it can be uncomfortable, but it's very much needed. And that's what the 5 reminds us of, that the change has to happen in order for us to move forward, in order for us to evolve, in order for us to fall into greater alignment and to feel better. It kind of rips the Band-Aid off a little bit and shows us where it is that we have a false sense of security, where we have a false sense of love, where we have a false sense of worthiness or whatever it may be. And that hidden beneath that is that, that trauma that we need to work through, or that those insecurities that we really need to work through. Because usually what we end up doing is we take our insecurities and we throw them out on other people and force them to help us to not feel insecure. When the work really lies in us moving through our own insecurities, facing them, working through them, and getting to the point where we no longer have to face them. We never have to worry about them. We've moved beyond them. But that takes work. That takes change. And that takes no longer requiring others to sort of heal those insecurities for us. So there's a lot of depth here with this full moon and this week, for sure. The other thing I would say with this energy is that it's pushing us to be very honest with ourselves, to be very honest with how we feel about something, what we desire, what we truly want for ourselves, to take a really close look at that, and to be really honest with ourselves about how we really feel about someone or about something. And then, and this is the hardest part, to be very honest with others about that, right? To be very clear and to be very honest with others. And sometimes that means having those very difficult conversations. Like, I'm sorry, I can't. Maybe I said that I could help you, but you know what? I really can't. I'm at capacity. I can't take anything more on. I'm sorry. And will the other person be let down? Probably, maybe, who knows? But you're not doing yourself or the other person any service by not being honest with yourself that, can I handle this? And then not being very honest with the other person. No, I can't handle this. And, I apologize, but it gives that other person the opportunity to then find the resources that can help them, that do have the capacity to do that. By being honest with yourself and honest with the other person about how you feel about something, about where you're at, about what you need, you're not only serving yourself, but you're serving the other person and letting them find the resources then that they need to get the support that they need if you're not able to show up in that way. And so this energy, again, will force us or will push us, right? We always have free will, but it'll push us to be very honest with ourselves about how we feel about something. And some things that could come out, into the light could very well be, maybe this relationship isn't working. Maybe this isn't the right person for me. Maybe, we both want different things. But maybe we're staying in the relationship because there's that loyalty factor, or there's that commitment that we made, or whatever. And so we stop being honest with each other and we start to feed more into that dishonesty. And this energy of the full moon, of the 5 and the 6, helps to, shed light on that and can really help us to see where it is, again, that we're not doing ourselves or the other person any service by continuing to show up in a way that's not authentic or true for ourselves. Because in being true and authentic to ourselves, we will be true and authentic with others and give them the opportunity to do the same, right? And hold space for that. So this energy can push us to be very honest with ourselves. It's then our job to be very honest with the other person, to let them know how we feel, and to create a space where the other person can also be very honest with us in what they need and how they feel. And it's through that honesty, it's through that conversation that we're able to create that space where some kind of solution can present, right? Some kind of common ground that serves the highest good of all involved. So the 5 and the 6 of this full moon, which is really carrying the energy this week. I mean, it's really the pivotal energy, the prominent energy. Even though the overarching energy is that of the 3, the 5 and the 6 is really the showstopper because it's with this full moon. But the 5 and the 6 together brings to the surface what isn't working, what isn't at that greater vibration of love, truth, and honesty. And it forces us to look at it. It forces us to do something about it, to think about it, to be confronted with it, to be very real about, again, how we feel while being very present and understanding for how another person feels and how another person expresses themselves. And through that process, each party gains a tremendous amount of freedom to be themselves, to show up in something that feels good and healthy, or to release something that doesn't. And this energy will say, stop pointing the finger at others and take a closer look at what we can do differently ourselves. What choices can we make? What actions can we take in order to get different results? So there's a lot of accountability and responsibility tied up with these energies. But at the end of the day, we're the only ones who can change our circumstances if we don't like the experience that we're having. And this energy reminds us of that, but doesn't only remind us of it, it shows us where things are not working, where they're not at that vibration of love, truth, and honesty, whether it's our belief system, our values, how we show up to connections, how we interact with another. All of this could be, at the forefront, and especially with those deeper relationships, because that's really where it starts. That's really those deeper connections is where the truth of who we are usually tends to come out, or what we're struggling with, right? If we have insecurities, the people who are going to see those insecurities the quickest and the most are the people who are closest to us, who we feel safe with, we feel we can be vulnerable with. And so, and sometimes it's not that pretty. So this energy helps us to see that. Where do we need to make some modifications? Where do we need to make some changes in our own lives in order to get better results? Now, the 3, again, being that overarching energy of the week, the week of January 13th, this brings the courage, the courage to have the conversations, not the debates. There's a big, big difference between debating and conversating. And this energy of the 3 pushes us to have the conversations. So if you find yourself coming to the table to prove your point or to prove yourself or to, bring out the slideshow of why you're right, why your stance is correct, why your perspective is the valid one, if you're coming to the table to invalidate another person's experience, right, while validating your own, then you're coming to the table to debate. You're not coming to the table to have a conversation. You're not ready for that conversation. Showing up for a conversation is about having the space, again, to share your honesty, to share how you're feeling, to help the other person to understand your perspective, again, where you're coming from, what you need, but also having the space for the other person to do the same. So when we come to the table for a conversation, it's not just about what we want to share. It's about what we can also gain in understanding about the other person through what they're sharing. And through that process, right, we find some kind of, or we can work towards finding some kind of common ground. And it's through that greater understanding and that finding that common ground, which can then lead to greater solutions and resolutions and more aligned actions. So debating, fear-mongering, the propaganda that we just see nonstop on social media, on the news, whatever, really serves no purpose. It really doesn't, right? There's a time and a place for debating, but it really has no place in connectivity or unity or community in coming together. Because the debating, the arguing, the trying to prove your point, it just creates division. 100%. You cannot have unity where there is debating, because debating is solely about, I'm right, you're wrong, and let me tell you why. Let me prove to you why that is, right? So there's a winner and a loser in debating. But in relationships and connectivity and conversations, it actually, first of all, there's no room for debating. There's only room for communication. And that communication happens through those conversations. And that those conversations are what create a path towards greater understanding and unity. So all of that to say that is where the push is this week. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially when there's high energy, when there's charged energy, when the emotions are raging. It is not easy, but it also, brings about a level of emotional maturity. There's so much that goes into this, right? I could spend 6 hours talking about this. But this week, if we're open to it, we could get a really good handle on, or a really good idea of, where it is that we've been showing up to debate, whether it's with loved ones, whether it's with friends, family, our close-knit community, whatever. We've been showing up to debate, and we haven't been showing up for the conversations. And it's those conversations that will actually bring about the solutions, right? We don't always have to agree. We don't have to buy into it. We don't have to even participate. But we can find that common ground. And the only way that we can find the common ground is through the conversation. It's not going to be found through debating. And so if there's an area within your life where there needs to be the greater conversation about how you feel, what you need, what's working, what's not working, and where you need to have the capacity to also hold space for the other person to do the same and to receive that honesty with grace, right? Create a space where the other person also feels safe to share what they need, what's good for them, what's working, what's not working. That's how we're going to find the solutions. And so again, if there's some area within your life where you've been maybe avoiding the conversation, sweeping it under the rug, this would be a week for sure where the elephant is going to present itself, have a seat, and wait until that conversation occurs before it's even thinking about leaving. So this is that elephant in the room type of energy, but it's really forcing us to face what isn't working, find a solution, and move forward. Yeah. So really big energy here. And of course, we could see this play out on a global stage. It needs to play out on a global stage for sure, right? But again, the energy can be there. It's what we choose to do with it that makes the difference. So, but this week, that 3 energy is a global energy. It's a universal cycle. Same thing with the full moon. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what plays out. But just know, and I know you know this, but from a numerology standpoint, we're not going to get very far with debating, with arguing, with, the separation. There's a limit to that, of how far that can take us. And this energy says, there's a better way, we can do better, let's find it. So yeah, I hope it's a great one. Pretty intense energy this week, to be honest, but really beautiful, really truly powerful, and has the potential to bring a lot of really much needed solutions, not only on the individual, from the individual standpoint, but from a global standpoint. But it also requires the individual to show up and do the work in order for us to see it on the collective layer. So I hope it's a great one. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.